Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of municipal transit reports, financial blueprints, and urban planning documents to get through today.
Yeah, it's a lot of reading, but the implications are huge.
Right, because it's all about this massive historic public transit redesign that's actually happening right now, like May of 2026 out in Montreal's West Island.
Which is, a major shift for the city.
It really is. So the mission for us today is to unpack how a major metropolis solves one of the most, well, stubborn dilemmas in urban planning.
Oh, the suburban transit problem.
Exactly. How do you run public transit in these quiet, sprawling suburbs without completely bankrupting the city?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Literally.
Literally. And our sources highlight this radical new strategy from the Société de Transport de Montréal, the STM. They're officially calling it precision surgery.
Precision surgery, it's a great term for it.
It is. To really grasp the scale of what they're changing for you as a rider, imagine you need to grab a carton of milk from the corner store.
Okay, simple enough grocery run?
Right, but you wouldn't charter a 150-seat commercial airliner to make that trip, would you?
I mean, I wouldn't. The fuel costs alone would be astronomical. Not to mention trying to park a Boeing 747 in a suburban strip mall lot.
Right. But the crazy thing is, for decades, that oversized, incredibly wasteful approach has basically been the default operating model for suburban transit.
Yeah, we've essentially been sending these massive, heavy 40-foot standard buses down sleepy residential streets.
Just burning fuel.
Exactly. And often carrying just one or two passengers. Cities have been burning through their operating budgets just to move empty air around quiet neighborhoods.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
It is, but modern transit systems simply cannot afford that luxury anymore. The financial mechanics of urban mobility have basically hit a breaking point.
So the STM is actively trying to pull us away from that breaking point. They're currently synchronizing their entire surface bus network with the arrival of the massive new light rail system.
The Réseau Express Metropolitan.
Yeah, universally known as the REM. But looking at these documents, they aren't just, tweaking a few bus schedules or moving a stop down the street.
No, not at all.
They're fundamentally altering the physical way vehicles move through these neighborhoods. They're permanently parking that commercial airliner, and they're bringing out the scalpel.
The scalpel metaphor is highly accurate here because a 40-foot bus is a blunt instrument.
Right. It takes up the whole road.
Yeah, it forces its way through the environment regardless of actual need. But this new approach targets low-density areas, places like the village of Senneville, El Bizard, and Bader Fay.
So moving away from the one-size-fits-all thing.
Exactly. The STM is pivoting heavily toward what they call the shared taxi or taxi collective, combined with the peak hour shuttle model.
So we're talking about minivans here.
Minivans or just standard passenger cars, they still operate along designated transit corridors, but the defining mechanic of the system is that they primarily operate on demand.
On demand. Okay, let's unpack this on-demand mechanic, because I want to make sure we understand how this actually works for you, the listener, if you're trying to catch a ride.
Right, because it's not just a free private Uber service paid for by the city.
Right. You make a reservation via a mobile app or a phone call, and if 0 residents request a ride on a given Tuesday morning, that vehicle simply does not move.
It stays parked. Exactly.
And the app uses an algorithm to essentially create a dynamic, highly efficient carpool. It groups riders who are heading to the same major transfer point.
Like the future Anse-Alarme REM station.
Yeah, and it calculates the most efficient route to scoop everyone up without making anyone ride in circles for an hour.
Which is key for user adoption.
Definitely. And the integration is completely seamless. You don't need a special premium account. You just use your standard OPUS card, the exact same tap-and-go transit pass you already have, and you pay your regular fare.
Which is how they're tailoring the service to the specific physical and economic realities of different zones.
How so?
Well, take Bader Fay, for instance. Line 294 is being explicitly calibrated to link shift workers directly to the local industrial park.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's highly targeted.
Yeah. And meanwhile, in El Bizard, Line 290 is utilizing these smaller, nimble minivans to navigate the complex, uneven topography of the island.
Because it's pretty hilly and tight there, right?
Exactly. A 40-foot multi-ton bus physically struggles on narrow, winding island roads. It damages the infrastructure. It creates a massive bottleneck. But a minivan, it just glides right through.
The geography aspect is fascinating. You're adapting the vehicle to the terrain rather than forcing the terrain to accommodate a massive vehicle.
Precisely.
But I noticed in the sources that while May 18th is a massive expansion of this rollout, this isn't actually like an unproven wild experiment.
No, not at all.
Yeah, the shared taxi service in Central Route 281 has been running for over a decade. And the documents show it boasts consistent satisfaction rates of over 80%.
What's fascinating here is that longevity proves a fundamental concept for urban planners.
Wow.
In a sector where the population density mathematically cannot justify running high-frequency standard buses every 15 minutes, a hybrid on-demand model is not a temporary Band-Aid.
Right. It's not just a stopgap measure.
Exactly. It's a structural necessity. The decade of data from Senville proves that the gap between rural tranquility and high-speed urban accessibility can be successfully bridged if you use the right tool for the job.
It makes perfect logistical sense on a map. But let's follow the money here.
Let's do it.
Because municipalities rarely undergo massive foundational redesigns just because it looks elegant on a whiteboard, right? There's always a financial engine forcing the issue.
Oh, absolutely. And the engine driving this is a severe structural deficit.
Okay.
The fundamental math of public transit across Quebec is currently broken. Costs have permanently risen, while post-pandemic ridership revenues just haven't fully bounced back to cover those gaps.
Yeah, they're operating in a really tight spot. The STM is working with a budget of approximately $1.8 billion for 2026. And at the same time, they have this aggressive mandate to hit 1.1 million daily trips across the island and claw their way back to 100% of pre-pandemic ridership.
Which is a tall order. They absolutely cannot achieve those targets if they continue to hemorrhage their budget on empty miles in the suburbs.
Let's break down those empty miles because the cost comparison in these financial documents is honestly, genuinely jaw-dropping.
It really is staggering.
Running a standard bus in a rural or low-density zone costs the city upwards of $12 per kilometer traveled.
$12 per kilometer.
I want you to think about why that number is so high. You're paying for heavy diesel fuel, the intense maintenance and wear and tear of a highly specialized air brake vehicle, and the hourly salary of a driver to navigate an empty metal tube on a rigid schedule.
Right, whether anyone is actually waiting at the bus stop or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$12 for every single kilometer. Now contrast that with dispatching a shared taxi. The sources state that costs the STM roughly $1.50 thousand to $5 per trip.
Yeah, that distinction is crucial.
Not per kilometer, per entire trip.
The mechanics of that savings come down to a few key factors. First, these are smaller, highly fuel-efficient vehicles or hybrids.
Makes sense.
Second, the STM is subcontracting these routes to partner drivers, which obviously changes the labor cost structure.
Right.
But the most vital factor is the elimination of the empty mile.
Because it's on demand.
Because it's on demand. The city is only paying for mobility when mobility is actually required. Zero demand equals $0 spent on fuel and maintenance for that hour.
Wow.
By making this switch in these peripheral zones, the STM is generating over $1 million in recurring, reliable annual savings.
$1 million a year. And the documents note they aren't just taking that money and throwing it into a vault to balance a spreadsheet.
No, they're reinvesting it.
Yeah, they're actively reinvesting those savings into high-frequency urban corridors closer to the downtown core, where ridership is exploding and buses are currently overcrowded.
The STM is taking the wasted resources from the quiet suburbs and redirecting them to the dense urban arteries where they are desperately needed, just to keep the city's broader economy moving.
Okay, I'm going to step in and play the angry taxpayer for a second.
Oh, go for it.
Because I can see exactly how this plays out at a local town hall meeting.
Oh, for sure.
If I live out in the West Island and I hear that the transit agency is cutting the full-size buses in my neighborhood, banking $1 million in savings, and then funneling my tax dollars to buy more buses for the downtown core.
Yeah.
Aren't I getting completely shortchanged? I mean, I'm paying the same municipal taxes, but my heavy transit infrastructure is being downgraded to a minivan so someone downtown can get a bus 3 minutes faster.
That is the exact reaction many residents have at first glance. It feels like a downgrade.
Right. It feels unfair.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, analyzing the reality of the structural deficit we just talked about, this strategy actually acts as a financial safety valve.
A safety valve. How so?
The paradox here is that cutting traditional service in the suburbs is the only thing saving suburban transit from total collapse.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In this current climate of massive budget shortfalls, the alternative isn't keeping your empty 40-foot bus. The alternative is the complete and permanent cancellation of your route entirely.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So it isn't a choice between a big, heavy bus and a small, nimble van.
No,
The actual choice on the table is between a small van and absolutely nothing at all.
precisely. By optimizing the periphery, the STM ensures that the entire island's transit ecosystem survives. And honestly, the suburban rider actually gets a premium, upgraded experience out of the deal.
Because of the punctuality.
Yeah. That 80% satisfaction rate from the Sentinel route doesn't come from people feeling shortchanged. It comes from surgical punctuality and superior comfort.
You're not waiting out in the cold.
Exactly. You get a guaranteed seat in a quiet, climate-controlled car that arrives precisely when you summoned it. It takes you straight to the high-speed RM train.
Yeah, avoiding the dreaded ghost bus scenario.
Yeah. Right. You avoid standing in the snow waiting for a ghost bus that might have been canceled due to driver shortages, and the city manages to balance its books. It's a win-win.
Okay, we've talked a lot about spreadsheets and budgets, but to really understand the impact of this precision surgery, we have to look at how these smaller vehicles physically alter the fabric of the neighborhoods they're driving through.
This is my favorite part of the data.
You touched on the topography of El Bazard, but let's look at the environmental and infrastructure impacts. The village of Sendel, for example, is famous for its quiet, exclusive character and its older heritage roads.
Yeah, removing a 12-meter multi-ton transit vehicle from a small heritage street does more than just reduce local greenhouse gas emissions.
What else does it do?
The most tangible immediate benefit for the residents is the massive reduction in noise pollution and structural vibrations.
Oh man, the structural vibrations are a massive hidden cost of urban transit.
Yeah.
A standard transit bus weighs tens of thousands of pounds. When it hits a pothole or navigates a tight suburban turn, the kinetic energy transfers directly into the ground.
Yeah, you can feel it in your bones.
Literally, if you live in a house with a 100-year-old foundation, you literally feel the bus every time it passes. By switching to minivans and sedans, the STM is actively protecting the physical infrastructure of these rural enclaves.
The streets become quieter, the air becomes cleaner, and the foundations of the homes are physically more stable.
Here's where it gets really interesting for anyone paying attention to the housing market.
Oh, the property values.
Yeah. The sources explicitly highlight that properties efficiently linked to the new REM stations via these shared taxis are seeing a potential value increase of 5 to 8%.
Which is a massive jump.
It is. It mirrors the classic, highly sought-after school district effect we see in real estate.
Hmm?
People will gladly pay a premium for a home if the neighborhood guarantees a seamless, stress-free commute.
It radically changes the market appeal of the entire West Island. Suddenly, a neighborhood like Centerville attracts downtown professionals.
Who probably wouldn't have looked there before.
Exactly. They desperately want the absolute quiet, the greenery, and the lack of structural vibrations. But previously, they refused to deal with a grueling, unpredictable 90-minute commute.
And now?
Now, they get a scheduled minivan directly to a high-speed train. Furthermore, because this dedicated transit link is so reliable, it eliminates the need for a modern suburban household to purchase, insure, and maintain a second or third family car.
Which is an invisible tax cut right there. If you don't need a second car, you're saving thousands of dollars a year, every single year.
Absolutely.
But, this transit redesign isn't just catering to wealthy downtown professionals looking to boost their property values.
No, there's a strong social equity angle, too.
Yeah, there is a deep social inclusion element embedded in these documents. We're talking about utilizing this precision surgery to break the isolation for demographics who cannot simply hop into a personal car.
The STM is deploying specialized services, specifically the navettes or gold shuttles.
I saw those in the report. Those are for seniors, right?
Yes. They are dedicated explicitly to seniors in areas like Point Claire and Nuns Island. Aging in place in a sprawling suburb can quickly become a prison if you lose the ability to drive.
Oh, for sure. You're just stuck.
Exactly. These targeted shuttles provide a vital, low-barrier lifeline for seniors to reach grocery stores, medical appointments, and community centers. It allows them to maintain their independence.
And looking at the other end of the age spectrum, the documents show this on-demand model provides essential mobility for students too, like those trying to reach John Abbott College or McGill University's McDonald campus.
Yeah, students are highly reliant on this.
If you're 19 years old and can't afford a car, a reliable transit link to your morning lecture is literally the difference between passing and failing. Without it, you're entirely dependent on begging a friend or a parent for a ride.
This is why we are witnessing a true paradigm shift in urban planning ideology here.
In what way?
Well, historically, the shared taxi was viewed defensively. It was seen as an emergency measure, right? To slap a cheap Band-Aid on neglected rural enclaves that didn't generate enough tax revenue.
Almost like an afterthought.
Yes, exactly. But today, it has become a central, proactive pillar of modern, transit-oriented development. The agility is a feature, not a bug.
I hear the utopian vision clearly.
Yeah.
I do.
But
But we've got quiet heritage streets, soaring property values, connected seniors, students making it to class, all while the city saves $1 million a year. That sounds incredibly elegant.
it does.
But no massive civic overhaul happens without severe friction.
Very true.
May 18th is a massive, complex rollout date. I'm looking at this plan and I'm trying to find the catch. What are the vulnerabilities of tearing up a century-old transit model?
The internal sources are remarkably candid about this, actually. They explicitly use the phrase tearing choices.
Tearing choices.
Yeah. Operating under a structural deficit means the STM has to make ruthless prioritizations. As we discussed, they're boosting the strong, high-frequency downtown lines.
Right.
But that sometimes comes at the direct detriment of less-performing local routes in the periphery. For some outlying residents, this redesign means their traditional routes are being consolidated.
Which means the concept of territorial equity comes into play.
Exactly.
Territorial equity is essentially the argument that says, hey, I pay the exact same municipal taxes as the person living in the dense downtown core, so why is my neighborhood getting lesser service?
That's the core of the pushback.
If the new shared taxi route is fixed, and the STM has optimized the pickup points for maximum efficiency, some people will inevitably lose the bus stop that used to be right outside their front door.
They will. They might now have to walk 10 or 15 minutes to reach the consolidated taxi pickup zone. This raises an important question about fairness, but that is the harsh reality of optimizing a network.
You can't please everyone.
Right. If your overarching goal is maximizing absolute efficiency for the vast majority of the island, you mathematically risk alienating the few who live furthest out on the margins. Efficiency and extreme localized convenience are often mutually exclusive.
That makes sense. And beyond the physical distance to the new stops, there is a glaring technological vulnerability here, isn't there?
Oh, the app adoption.
Yes. The entire success of an on-demand model relies on the users actually demanding the service through the proper digital channels. It relies incredibly heavily on citizens adopting the STM's mobile app.
Which is easier said than done.
Which brings me back to the gold shuttles for the seniors.
Yes.
If we are championing this system as a miraculous lifeline that breaks the isolation for the elderly, isn't making the entire system heavily reliant on a smartphone app, creating a massive contradictory barrier for that exact demographic?
He has a massive concern.
Like, my 85-year-old grandmother struggles to switch the inputs on her television. We're asking her to navigate a dynamic transit app algorithm just to get to the grocery store.
You have zeroed in on the exact tension at the heart of modernizing public services. It is a profound contradiction.
How do they reconcile that?
Well, the primary engine of the million-dollar efficiency is digital batching. It requires real-time data input from the user. While the STM does offer traditional phone reservations as a fallback for those who cannot use the app.
Oh, they do have a phone line.
Yes, and as a fallback. But the challenge for the STM and the municipalities consulting on this is ensuring that the digital bridge doesn't inadvertently become a digital wall for the most vulnerable residents.
It is an incredibly delicate balancing act. You absolutely need the ruthless efficiency of the technology to save the money and keep the network afloat.
Right.
But you desperately need the human touch and accessible design to ensure the senior citizen can actually secure a ride without feeling overwhelmed and just giving up.
And that human element extends to the operational side as well. The STM is subcontracting these shared taxi routes to partner drivers.
Oh, so they aren't STM employees.
Not directly. They are stepping away from their internal, highly regulated driving staff for these specific routes.
That feels risky.
It is. The reliability of those subcontracted drivers, their ability to show up precisely on time, smoothly manage the app's dynamic routing requests, and provide that premium level of comfort is the ultimate pass-or-fail test of the system.
Because if the driver is late or rude.
Exactly. If the partner drivers are unreliable, that 80% satisfaction rate plummets and the safety valve bursts.
So executing this precision surgery requires flawless coordination between the digital algorithm, the subcontracted driver, and the daily commuter.
It's a lot of moving parts.
It is the defining friction of the May 18th rollout.
Oh.
Can the STM maintain a baseline of territorial equity and ensure accessibility for the elderly while simultaneously executing this ruthless financial optimization?
It is a monumental task, but it's basically necessary at this point.
Yeah.
What Montreal is fundamentally proving with this redesign is that the future of the last mile in suburban transit isn't about pouring more concrete for heavier infrastructure.
Or buying bigger buses.
Right. It isn't about forcing massive empty buses down quiet streets just because that is how it was done in 1995.
It's about harmonizing the transit with both the economic reality of the city and the actual physical geography of the land.
Exactly.
It's fluid, on-demand, terrain-adapted precision surgery.
It demonstrates that agility and flexibility are the ultimate keys to a modern city's survival in an era of tight budgets and changing commuter habits.
So the next time you see a massive empty bus lumbering down a quiet suburban street in your own town, rattling the windows and burning through diesel, think about that commercial airliner making a grocery run.
It really is a perfect comparison.
Montreal is finally keeping the airliner parked. But as we wrap up this deep dive, it leaves you with a lingering question to ponder long after you take your headphones off.
What's that?
Well, look around your own neighborhood. If a major metropolis like Montreal can completely dismantle a rigid, century-old model of fixed bus routes and replace it with a fluid, on-demand, app-based network that adapts to actual human behavior, what other massive, stubbornly fixed services in your own city could be completely reimagined? Could your neighborhood's waste management schedule, your street lighting, or even your municipal road maintenance be triggered on demand based on actual algorithms rather than a rigid calendar?
Oh, wow. That's a huge thought.
It makes you wonder how many other millions could be saved and how much greener your street could be if your city decided it was time to bring out the scalpel. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.